Just a few moments from now, President Biden and Vice President Harris will mark the tragic milestone of 500,000 American souls lost to COVID-19 with a moment of silence and a candle-lighting ceremony. It is a grim milestone that under the right leadership certainly didn't have to be this way. A pandemic that with the right leadership didn't have to take this toll, exact this toll on our country. Dr. Anthony Fauci told ABC this morning some of it, including disparate responses from states rather than a unified approach, could have been avoided.
We've done worse than most any other country, and we're a highly developed, rich country. Remember back in the late winter and early spring of 2020 when we were saying we could get as high as 240,000 and people were thinking we were being hyperbolic about it, and now here we are with 500,000 deaths, just a stunning figure.
Joining our conversation, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Also joining us, Jason Johnson, contributor to the GRIO, professor at Morgan State University. And lucky for us, an MSNBC contributor. Donna is still with us. Mayor, we've spoken throughout the pandemic, and I think that in the earliest days, no one could have imagined 500,000 of our fellow citizens would be lost to the pandemic at the barely one-year mark. How are you doing, and how's your city?
Well, I mean, I do think that we have to stop and reflect on this just horrific milestone. We've lost almost 5,000 people here in my city, despite a significant amount of time and effort and resources to educate people, to talk about things that they can do to protect themselves. It certainly didn't help over the course of 2020 that everything that we were trying to do at the local level was really undercut by the disjointed and I would say really incompetent response from the federal government. For months and months, the former president refused to take this pandemic seriously and really lead the way on what we should be doing as Americans to protect ourselves and to really save lives. So a lot of us work very, very hard at the local level, but when the President of the United States gets on the media with the incredible platform and bully pulpit that he has every single day and ignores the science, ignores the public health admonitions, it is unfortunately, sadly, not a terrible surprise that we arrived at this point. I think what we can do best now is certainly reflect upon the lives lost. I think there's, at this point, no one in the country that doesn't know someone whose life was tragically lost to this disease. But I think this also gives us an opportunity to make sure that we do our parts to move forward in an entirely different way. And certainly the vaccine gives us a powerful tool to help better save people's lives. But it's a sobering moment, no question.
You were one of the first public officials to speak out in the earliest months about the dramatic and, at the time, April, May, shocking racial inequity of just how seriously ill communities of color were getting when they contracted the coronavirus. I'd love to hear how you're feeling about that in the context of vaccine distribution.
Well, I think the fact that we sounded the alarm in the way that we did, but more importantly, that we went into our communities and built meaningful and authentic partnerships in the Black community, in the Latinx community, has really started to pay dividends. We just announced last Friday that for the first time since vaccines came to Chicago, over 50% of the people that took the first dose were people of color. That is up from barely 20% in the first early weeks of vaccine distribution. And to be clear, we're not doing a victory lap, but the fact that we've made that significant progress is really a testament to the hard work that we started back in the early days of the pandemic and really the on-the-ground forces that have made a difference in these neighborhoods to really demystify the disease, bring people into care, and then themselves being ambassadors for the life-saving qualities of the vaccine. It's made an incredible difference, and we're very optimistic about what the future holds because of the hard work that's been done at the local level here in our neighborhoods.
I want to ask you two more quick questions, and if you have more updated numbers, please correct me. But as of last week, more than 7,500 Chicago public school teachers and staff members have been vaccinated, and I know that there's a commitment to get your teachers and your teaching workforce and everyone in schools vaccinated. Can you tell us how that's going?
I think it's going pretty well. Those numbers sound about right from what my staff has advised me. Look, this is a terrible situation that we were in, not only because of the grievous harm wrought by the pandemic, but the fact that we don't have enough vaccine to take it to every corner of our city and get everyone vaccinated in a hurry. So we have to make decisions. And in Chicago, at least, we're doing that in a data-driven way. We initiated something called Protect Chicago Plus, where we've identified through our public health department the 15 neighborhoods that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. And we are going deep into those neighborhoods. And really, our commitment is there is going to be no barrier from us maximizing the number of people in these neighborhoods in particular that are getting the vaccine, every walk of life, every employment, every age. And it's really been a marvel to see. And I think that, too, has really contributed to the uptick in vaccine uptake by Black and brown Chicago, because those are the 15 neighborhoods that we are primarily in. But we just have to keep working harder to get the message out about why the vaccine is important, and then keep pushing the federal government. And I know that the Biden administration is working hard, but every city that I know needs more vaccine.
Yeah. Mayor Lori Lightfoot of Chicago, thank you for spending some time with us. Hopefully next time we'll have you back when the Chicago Bulls are filling up their arena because the whole country is vaccinated, and we're both probably watching a lot of basketball on TV. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Absolutely.
Donna and Jason are here. Donna, the real life fight against COVID has nothing to do with partisan politics, and it's something we know, but it smacks you in the side of the head when you listen to a mayor talking about where she actually knows where the precious doses that she gets are going, and she knows that she doesn't have enough to protect her whole city.
Yeah, it was striking listening to Mayor Lightfoot and appreciating her leadership all along and really trying to help her city. I mean, even where I am, a majority Black county right outside of D.C., and my 82-year-old mother hasn't been able to get her first vaccine yet. And also, the human toll that it takes. So many families, the 500,000 plus families who've lost family members due to COVID, 28 million who have been infected. It's a real tragedy, and I think that the more this administration can push out more of that vaccine, there are people who are, would stand in line who want to take the vaccine yesterday in order to protect themselves, their family members, and their communities. And we just need to make sure that we have all the mechanisms in place to enable people willingly to get that vaccine. But the human toll has been unbelievable. And I remember being on your show more than a year ago talking about this and never even imagining the toll that it would take on individual families and the number of lives that would be lost. This seems unbelievable that we could have gotten here, but we did because we had such failed leadership at the top that just spread like wildfire across the country.
Jason, I asked my team to prepare some of the most egregious disinformation and lies and misstatement that Trump put out using his presidential megaphone, and then I decided I didn't want to see him on a day like today. But it's endless. They're the famous lies, like poof, like a miracle, it'll go away. We've got 15, soon we'll have one. There are the outrageous inaccuracies, like hydroxychloroquine, buy it, take it, do it, you'll be fine. There's the downright dangerous, bat bleep crazy stuff he said, like injecting bleach into your lungs. We'll try it, right, Dr. Birx? And she's doing that crazy thing with her face. But under all of it was a refusal, a dead set refusal to do what Joe Biden's going to do today. Ever even pretend to care that Americans were dying on his watch.
Nicole, I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't play one on TV, but I'd say amongst all the horrible lies and all the tremendously evil, and I think evil things that Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and Mike Pence and the rest of his administration did, was what they did about masks. And Dr. Fauci has said that's like the simplest thing that all of us can do. Politicizing mask wearing, I can't put a number on how many lives were lost, but if Donald Trump had just said, I don't care, wear a mask or not, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people who would not have gotten infected. But when the president decided last year to make masks a line in the sand about whether or not you believe in Trump or whether or not you're a strong person or whether or not you're weak and you're liberal, that added a cultural component on top of the disinformation that I think has cost thousands of lives and sickened hundreds of thousands of people. And that's just one of the many terrible things that we're dealing with today. And honestly, Nicole, I think that for all the terrible things that we saw last year, I'm happy to see the level of rollout that we're seeing from Joe Biden, but it's just an example of, gosh, if you're just remotely competent and remotely empathetic to human nature, this is actually something that could be handled.
There's no words to better, I think, describe this moment than the ones you just chose. I would add that there's some reporting in the Washington Post about the pandemic's youngest victims. More than 200 children have died. And so much of the narrative around children is that they are largely immune. They're not. And so the thought that some of those candles are for someone's 9-year-old or 6-year-old, and every candle represents an entire world, an entire universe being destroyed. I thought what Joe Biden did was just a meditation on grief. He described the black hole in your soul, survivor's remorse, and so we have to resist becoming numb to the sorrow.
As you were saying, are unique and fitting.
Well, and this president is unique and fitting. And when you hear him talk about being a president for every American, he's talking about opening up the door to his darkest hours, his most painful moments as a father and a husband. And you can hear him remembering the smell of the closet when you open the door. And to have a president willing to open his heart in his saddest moments, in his saddest days, to help the country through its saddest moments and its saddest days, is what Joe Biden means when he says he's going to be a president for every American.
I'm duty-bound to remember one of the last times there was this much live television attention. I am guessing your mind went there, too, on the South Portico.
You and I sat here for hours watching the helicopter take one sick Donald Trump to Walter Reed on this shot, on this balcony.
And think of the return. Think of the live coverage of his return from the hospital. The people who know him and know medicine noticed he was oxygen-starved by the time he got to the top of the steps, where he triumphantly pulled off his mask and walked unmasked into the residence of the White House to shoot a video in that moment. It was as much a celebration of his successful treatment as it was anything else missing from that event. Any note, any mention of the loss we remember today.
And I think Joe Biden in his 2 events has gone so far in tapping into this collective grief, which knows no partisan association, of tapping into science. I mean, we've been talking for the last 2 hours about these fact-filled briefings, but this is the part of it that I think people were aching for, someone to put words and ritual to grief. And that is what he did tonight. Brian, let's bring into our conversation our friends Donna Edwards and Jason Johnson. Donna.
You know, I was thinking, Nicole, as President Biden was speaking about those 500,000 lives lost, I want to add to that, you know, publicly, my Aunt Mary. And when Joe Biden talked about not being able to celebrate a homegoing, I thought of my cousins and our family members not being able to gather and comfort each other in the way that families do. And I think that tonight, Joe Biden really spoke to our hearts as people, to our humanity, and to us as Americans to celebrate those lives lost, to remember them, and to keep in our prayers all of their family members and friends and extended family who are missing somebody at the table tonight.
Jason?
We talk a lot about Joe Biden's empathy and how he can draw upon the loss of his wife and children, but when he talks about going into the closet and that waft of somebody who's not there, just remembering somebody's laugh, I don't know that I've ever seen a president in my lifetime more appropriately channel the level of pain and agony that so many people were in. Just last week, one of my best friends lost her father abroad to COVID. I know dozens of people who have lost folks to COVID who are suffering through COVID now. And I think, you know, if you would asked us a year ago what would be the most tragic memorial that we would have this year, it'd be the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. And yet here we are, and it's February, and we're talking about the loss of 500,000 lives, and it'll be a lot worse by the time we get to September. And in a nonpartisan way, I'm very happy that we have this president to guide us through this, because I can't think of anybody else who more effectively represents what we're going through and cares more deeply about it than Joe Biden.